Life in Louisiana always seemed calm and predictable to me. From early in the morning, I'd wake up, have a cup of strong coffee, and then follow my usual routine. I worked, came home, met my wife, a beautiful blonde with bright eyes and an infectious laugh, who illuminated my life. We had been together for many years, and amidst the ordinary, it seemed like there were no cracks in our marriage. But deep down, I always felt something strange, something I couldn't quite name, yet it kept gnawing at me. My wife, Laura, was not just attractive, she was the kind of beautiful that made every man stare. I remember when we'd walk down the street or enter a cafe, and I could feel the male gazes linger on her figure. She was like a magnet, and it didn't matter how many times I saw it. At some point, it started to bother me. I understood that she was beautiful. I understood that she drew attention. But the more I thought about it, the more uncomfortable I became. Being with a woman who had that effect on people was like being on stage, where everyone's eyes were on her. It always left me in the shadows. There were moments when I'd feel those eyes on her, when I'd see men trying to flirt with her, or when their eyes would light up in admiration, and I'd feel this sense of helplessness. I was her husband, but I felt like I wasn't enough for her. As the years went on, I began to realize that she had her own world, one where I might not be the center. These doubts didn't come all at once, but when they started creeping into my mind, I didn't know how to shake them off. I began noticing things I hadn't before. Little signs, like her frequent glances at her phone, hidden messages, or excuses when she stayed late at work or went out with her friends. It seemed normal at first, but something inside me whispered that things weren't right. I started wondering what could be wrong with our life. After all, Laura and I had always been the perfect couple, laughing, hugging, talking late into the night. What had changed? I started to realize that being married to such a woman wasn't just happiness, it was a burden. Have you ever known what it's like to be with someone who is admired by everyone but you? I wasn't jealous, but sometimes my mind would fill with those questions that you couldn't just ignore. I pushed them aside because I didn't want to seem weak, but they wouldn't go away. They wouldn't go away because I was beginning to understand, she could be with anyone. And then, I started noticing her eyes, how they sometimes sparkled when she spoke about a new acquaintance, a chance encounter with a man, moments that were hidden from me. It seemed like every time she smiled at someone on the street, I lost another piece of the world I was trying to build. But I didn't truly realize that something was wrong until someone new appeared on the scene. A person who, it seemed, had come out of nowhere, and with him, everything became even more complicated. But for now, it was just a feeling, until something happened that turned my understanding of our life upside down. It was just another ordinary day. I had been working all morning, and the sun was already setting as I pulled into the Walmart parking lot. I had no particular reason to go there other than picking up a few things we needed for the house. Laura had mentioned earlier that she needed some items, so I figured it'd be quick. Nothing too exciting. I didn't think anything unusual would happen. I had no idea that this would be the beginning of the end, or at least the beginning of understanding the truth I had been avoiding for so long. As I walked through the sliding glass doors, the scent of fresh produce and cleaning supplies hit me, the usual hum of the store was in the air. I glanced around, looking for the things we needed, and then I saw her. There she was, Laura. She was standing in the middle of the aisle, talking to a man I'd never seen before. My heart stopped for a moment, not because of the situation, but because of the way she was laughing. She was laughing in a way that was different from the usual, the kind of laugh that had a little too much flirtation in it, the kind of laugh that, if I'm being honest, felt too familiar. The man she was talking to was tall, muscular, and dark-skinned. His smile was confident, almost cocky. His voice was deep, with an accent that I could tell was unmistakably from another part of the world. I could see the way he moved as they talked, he wasn't just another guy she was chatting with. There was something about the way they interacted that was, more than casual. I didn't know what to do. Should I walk up to them and make it known that I was her husband? Should I confront the man? The thought of confrontation made my stomach twist. But something inside me told me I wasn't ready to face the truth yet. I tried to brush it off, thinking maybe I was just being paranoid. After all, we lived in a world where people talked to strangers all the time. It was just a friendly conversation, right? But then I saw the way she touched his arm. It wasn't much, just a brief touch, but it was enough to make my heart race. I hadn't seen her act like that before, not with anyone. She had always been respectful to me, but this was different. I didn't want to interrupt, so I decided to keep my distance for a few moments, pretending to look at some items on the shelf. But I couldn't stop staring. My eyes kept drifting back to them, even though I tried not to let it show. As I observed them, I realized that this wasn't just a random encounter. This wasn't just some guy she'd met in the store. There was something more happening here. Eventually, I watched as Laura pulled out her phone and handed it to him. He looked at the screen for a few seconds, nodded, and then smiled at her. She smiled back, and in that moment, I felt like I was the outsider in my own marriage. What was going on? Was this normal? Why did she look so at ease with him, when I had always been the one who was supposed to be the center of her attention? As they exchanged numbers and said their goodbyes, Laura walked towards me. She didn't see my face, but I'm sure she knew something was off. The way she looked at me wasn't the same. It was almost as if she was hiding something. I forced a smile and asked her how everything was going, but the words felt hollow. I was no longer asking about the groceries. I was asking something deeper, something that felt like it had been growing inside me for a while. But I didn't have the courage to speak the truth. As we checked out and left the store, I couldn't help but replay that moment over and over in my head. What had just happened? Why had I never seen that side of Laura before? And who was this man that had caught her attention so easily? That night, after we got home and I had a chance to settle down, I tried to push the whole thing out of my mind. But it wasn't easy. The doubts that had been nagging at me for months now felt like a hurricane of uncertainty. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was about to change. And for the first time in my life, I felt like I wasn't in control of my own reality anymore. But even though I tried to convince myself it was just a harmless encounter, I knew deep down that it wasn't. Something had shifted, and I was afraid to find out what was on the other side of that shift. The following days felt like a blur. The encounter at Walmart lingered in my mind, twisting and turning like a knot I couldn't untangle. I kept replaying that moment over and over in my head, the way they interacted, the way her laugh sounded different, the way she seemed so at ease with him. It didn't sit right with me, and every time I tried to brush it off as nothing, a voice in the back of my mind kept telling me it was something more. Laura was different. I could tell. It wasn't anything she said or did overtly, but there was a subtle shift in her behavior. She was distant, colder, like something between us had changed. She'd been spending more time on her phone, texting or scrolling through social media, and every time I'd ask her what she was up to, she'd give me a vague answer or quickly change the subject. I told myself I was being paranoid, that I was imagining things. After all, it could just be work stress or something else, right? But every little thing seemed to be adding up. She was leaving the house more often, and when she did, she'd always say she was meeting friends or going to the gym. But the timing didn't add up. Sometimes, I'd ask if I could tag along, and she'd find a reason why it wasn't a good idea. It felt like she was pulling away, distancing herself from me in ways I couldn't explain. The more I thought about it, the more the encounter with that man in Walmart started to make sense in ways I didn't want it to. I tried to talk to her about it. I asked her if everything was okay between us, if she was feeling different. She brushed me off with a smile and a quick reassurance that everything was fine. But that smile didn't reach her eyes. There was a hesitation, a guardedness that I hadn't seen before. I knew her well enough to see it. It was as if she was hiding something, and the more I dug, the more I started to fear what that might be. Then one evening, I came home early. I hadn't expected to, but I was just passing by and thought I'd surprise her. I opened the door quietly, not wanting to interrupt if she was busy with something. But as I stepped inside, I froze. There she was, sitting on the couch, her phone in her hand, and that same man from Walmart was on the screen. They were texting, and his name was lit up in bold letters. She didn't see me at first, but I saw enough. Enough to know that something had shifted, something was wrong. I didn't confront her right away. I didn't want to jump to conclusions or make things worse than they already felt. But I knew deep down that I couldn't ignore this any longer. The seed of doubt had been planted, and I was struggling to ignore it. Over the next few days, I noticed even more changes. She started coming home later, sometimes hours later than usual. When I asked her about it, she'd claim she'd been with friends or had gotten caught up in work. But the more time went on, the more I could feel the tension between us building. The love we once had felt distant, like a memory from a past life. And it all came to a head one evening when she came home after being gone for hours. Her hair was slightly disheveled, and her makeup was smudged, like she had been out all day, but something about her demeanor didn't sit right. When I asked her about it, she hesitated for just a moment too long before giving me another excuse that didn't quite add up. That was when I knew for sure. The man from Walmart had somehow become more than just a fleeting encounter. He had become a part of our story. And no matter how hard I tried to deny it, I couldn't ignore the truth any longer. Something was happening behind my back, something I wasn't ready to face but knew I had to. The truth had a way of unraveling itself, no matter how much we tried to suppress it. And so, I waited. I couldn't bring myself to confront her just yet, but I knew the day was coming. The day when everything would be exposed. The day when the facade would finally crumble, and the truth would be laid bare. The day had come. It felt inevitable, like a storm that was bound to hit no matter how much you prepared for it. I had spent the last few days trying to convince myself that I was wrong, that I was just being paranoid, that I was overthinking things. But deep down, I knew something had shifted between us. And that shift had only grown larger, more unignorable with each passing day. She came home late again, but this time, there was no excuse. No, I was with friends, or work ran late. She walked through the door with a look on her face that I couldn't quite place, almost like she was expecting something. It was as if she knew this moment was coming. And maybe she did. The question was whether she had prepared for it. Or if she, too, was still pretending that the truth didn't exist. I couldn't hold it in any longer. I had been silent for far too long, letting my doubts fester inside me like a sickness that was slowly consuming me. As she took off her coat and set her things down, I took a deep breath, my hands trembling slightly. The tension in the air was thick, and I knew this conversation could change everything. "Laura," I said, my voice shaking more than I wanted it to, "we need to talk." She looked at me, her eyes filled with something I couldn't quite read, guilt, maybe, or apprehension. She sat down on the couch, and I joined her, our distance growing with each second. I had never felt so far apart from her. Even though she was sitting right next to me, "I know what's been going on," I continued, trying to keep my voice steady, but it cracked anyway. "I know about him. I know about the texts, and I know you've been meeting him. You can't keep lying to me, Laura. It's eating me alive." For a moment, there was silence. I could hear the soft ticking of the clock on the wall, the kind of silence that felt like a prelude to something much bigger. Her face went pale, and I saw her swallow hard. She didn't look surprised, not like I had expected. She looked like someone who had already come to terms with it, someone who had been preparing for this conversation for a while. "I didn't mean for it to happen," she said softly, her voice barely a whisper. It just did. I never planned on falling for him, but something about him made me feel alive again. I know that doesn't excuse anything, but I never thought it would get this far. Her words hit me like a slap. But somehow, they didn't sting as much as I thought they would. I had already known the truth, hadn't I? I had already seen the signs, and now, here it was, confirmed in the most painful way possible. So it's true, I said, my voice flat. You've been seeing him. You've been lying to me this whole time. Her eyes welled up with tears, but she didn't look at me. She stared at her hands, wringing them together nervously. I never wanted to hurt you, she said, her voice breaking. I thought I could stop before it got out of control, but it didn't stop. I wasn't happy. I didn't feel the way I used to feel with you anymore. And I know it's wrong. I'm so sorry. The weight of her apology hung in the air. But it didn't bring me any relief. How could it? How could a simple apology fix the years of trust that had been shattered? How could her remorse change the fact that she had chosen someone else, someone who wasn't me, someone who had made her feel something I couldn't? Do you love him? I asked, my voice barely a whisper, afraid of what the answer might be. She hesitated, and in that moment, I could see her struggle. I don't know, she finally said. Maybe I do. I don't know if it's love, but he makes me feel something. Something that's been missing for a long time. The truth was out, laid bare between us. There was no pretending anymore, no more lies, no more games. She had crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. And while I wanted to hate her for it, there was still a part of me that couldn't fully let go. Because no matter what she did, no matter how much she hurt me, I had loved her. And that love, it felt like it was still holding on, weak. Fragile, but still there, but I knew now that our relationship, whatever it had been, would never be the same. She had betrayed me, and while I wasn't sure if I could ever forgive her, I knew one thing for sure, nothing would ever be the same again. The storm had arrived, and it was tearing everything apart. That night, sleep was impossible. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, my mind a battlefield of emotions, anger, sadness, humiliation. The laughter I had heard at Walmart echoed in my skull like a haunting melody, twisting into something sinister. I turned to look at her lying beside me, her back to me, her blonde hair spilling across the pillow. She looked peaceful, undisturbed. As if nothing had happened, but something had happened. I could feel it in my bones. The next morning, I went to work like a man sleepwalking. The usual sounds of my daily routine, the coffee machine humming, the radio playing softly in the background, my coworkers chatting, felt distant, like I was underwater. My hands moved mechanically, but my thoughts were elsewhere. I kept glancing at my phone, half hoping for a message from her. Maybe she would confess. Maybe she would come clean before I even had to ask, but my screen remained dark. By the time I got home, the weight in my chest had turned into something heavier. Something suffocating. She was already there, moving through the kitchen as if nothing was wrong, humming softly as she stirred a pot on the stove. The scent of garlic and butter filled the air, a cruel reminder of how normal everything still seemed on the surface. "Hey, babe," she said with a smile when she saw me. She walked up and kissed my cheek, the same way she always did. The same way she had done for years. It made my stomach turn. I set my keys down slowly, watching her. Studying her. Was she always this good at pretending? Or had I just been too blind to notice before? I couldn't take it anymore. Who was that guy at Walmart? I asked, my voice steady, but laced with something dark beneath the surface. She froze for a split second. A hesitation so brief that if I hadn't been looking for it, I might have missed it. Then she turned back to the stove, stirring absent-mindedly. "What guy?" she asked, feigning ignorance. "The tall guy. Black. The one you were laughing with." She let out a small scoff. "Oh. Him. That was nothing." She waved a hand dismissively. "Just some guy I met while shopping. We talked for a bit, that's all." I stepped closer. "Just some guy?" She finally turned to face me, crossing her arms. "Yes," she said, her voice firmer now, a slight edge to it. Why are you making such a big deal out of this? I studied her face, searching for the cracks. And then I saw it, just for a fraction of a second. A flicker of something. Guilt? Fear? Or was it just irritation at being caught? You looked guilty when you saw me, I said, my voice quieter now, more dangerous. Like you had something to hide. She rolled her eyes, exhaling sharply. Because I knew you'd react like this, she muttered. You always think the worst of me. I swallowed the lump in my throat. My hands were shaking. Are you cheating on me? The question hung between us like a blade, sharp and heavy. She didn't answer right away, that hesitation. It was too long. Too obvious. My stomach dropped, and in that moment, I knew. The silence that followed my question was suffocating. It stretched between us like a chasm, wide and impossible to cross. My heart pounded so loudly in my chest that I could hear it in my ears, each beat a countdown to the moment my life would change forever. She didn't answer right away, she just stood there, arms crossed, staring at me with a mixture of defiance and something else, something unreadable. I repeated the question, my voice barely above a whisper this time. Are you cheating on me? She exhaled sharply, turning away. I can't believe this. She muttered under her breath, rubbing her temples like she was the victim here. That was it. That reaction. That hesitation. The way she avoided my eyes. It told me everything I needed to know, but I needed to hear her say it. Just tell me the truth, I pressed, my voice harsher now, my patience unraveling. Don't lie to me. Not now. She finally looked at me, and for the first time, I saw something raw in her eyes. Guilt. Regret. Maybe even shame. But it didn't matter. It was too late for that now. She started, then stopped, shaking her head. I didn't mean for it to happen. My breath caught in my throat, so that was it. The confirmation. The words I had dreaded, yet expected. I felt like the ground beneath me had disappeared. Like I was free falling, but there was no end to the drop. How long? I asked. My voice hollow, she swallowed hard. It wasn't planned. It just happened. I clenched my jaw, my fingers curling into fists. That's not what I asked. She hesitated again, then finally whispered, a few weeks. A few weeks, I let out a hollow laugh, shaking my head in disbelief. A few weeks, I repeated, the words tasting like poison in my mouth. I stared at her, this woman I had loved, trusted, built a life with, and I couldn't recognize her anymore. Was she always this person? Or had I just been too blind to see it? Who is he? I asked, my voice cold now, detached. She bit her lip, looking down. His name is Marcus. Marcus, the name meant nothing to me, but at the same time, it meant everything. It was the name of the man who had destroyed my marriage. I let out a shaky breath, running a hand through my hair. My mind was a storm of emotions, rage, heartbreak, betrayal, but more than anything, I felt numb, because the worst part wasn't that she had cheated, it was that a part of me had seen this coming all along. I sat alone in our dimly lit living room, the soft hum of the refrigerator in the background the only noise breaking the unbearable silence. The weight of what I had discovered pressed down on me like a lead blanket, suffocating, relentless. I had always thought that betrayal was something that happened to other men, men who weren't good enough, men who didn't provide, men who failed their wives in some fundamental way. But here I was, a man who had given everything, left to pick up the pieces of a life I no longer recognized. Images of my wife with him played in my mind like a twisted movie reel. Her smile, her laughter, was any of it real? Or had she just been performing, pretending to love me while secretly craving someone else? The thought made my stomach turn. The woman I had built a life with, the woman I had trusted above all else, had thrown it all away for a fleeting moment of passion with a man she barely knew. I had always sensed something in her. A curiosity. A restlessness. Maybe I had ignored the signs because I didn't want to believe them. Maybe I had convinced myself that love was enough to keep her satisfied. But I was wrong. Love, loyalty, marriage, none of it had stopped her. I wanted to confront her, to demand answers, to make her feel even a fraction of the pain that was eating me alive. But at the same time, what was the point? Would she even care? Would she just apologize, shed a few tears, and expect me to forgive her? Or worse, would she admit she never loved me at all? The front door creaked open. I heard her heels clicking against the wooden floor as she stepped inside. My body tensed, my heart pounding in my chest. She had no idea what was waiting for her. I turned to face her as she entered the room. Her expression was unreadable, but there was something in her eyes, hesitation, guilt, or maybe just exhaustion. "We need to talk," I said, my voice steady but cold. She swallowed hard, setting her purse down. "I know." The room felt smaller than ever as she stood there, shifting uncomfortably under my gaze. I had played this moment out in my head 1,000 times, but now that it was here, I didn't know where to start. The rage that had been burning inside me was still there, but it was tangled with something else: exhaustion, sadness, maybe even the last remnants of love. She took a hesitant step forward, her blue eyes searching mine. "I know you're angry," she started, her voice soft. "But please, let me explain." I almost laughed. What could she possibly say that would make any of this better? That it was a mistake. That she didn't mean to. That she still loved me. None of it would erase the image of her in another man's arms. I clenched my fists, forcing myself to stay calm. "Go ahead," I said. "Explain." She exhaled shakily and looked away, as if she couldn't bear to meet my eyes. "It wasn't supposed to happen," she whispered. "I didn't plan it. I never wanted to hurt you, didn't plan it." My voice was sharper now. "So what was it then? A moment of weakness? A bad decision? Something you just fell into?" Her jaw tightened. "It's not that simple," I scoffed. "No, it's really simple. You made a choice. A choice to betray me. To throw everything we had away. So tell me, was it worth it?" She flinched as if I had struck her. For a brief moment, I thought she might break down, might finally show me something real. But instead, she stayed silent, and that silence told me everything. I took a step closer, my voice lower now but no less intense. "Do you love him?" Her lips parted slightly, but no words came out. She hesitated too long. And in that hesitation, I found my answer. I felt something inside me snap, something irreparable. The woman I had loved, the woman I had trusted, wasn't the person standing in front of me anymore. Maybe she never was. I turned away, running a hand through my hair as I tried to process it all. "You know what?" I muttered, more to myself than to her. "I don't even care anymore." She reached for me. "Please, don't say that." I pulled away before she could touch me. "No," I said firmly. "You don't get to beg for forgiveness now. You made your choice. And now, I'm making mine." For the first time, real fear flickered in her eyes. "What does that mean?" I looked at her, at the woman I had once built my world around, and for the first time, I felt nothing. "It means this is over." I sat in my car outside our house, my fingers gripping the steering wheel so tightly that my knuckles turned white. Inside, she was waiting. Maybe she was crying. Maybe she was rehearsing excuses. Maybe she was already packing her bags, knowing there was no way back from this. I took a deep breath and stepped out. The door creaked open, and there she was, sitting on the couch, looking up at me with red, swollen eyes. The silence between us was thick, suffocating. "I don't know what to say," she whispered. "Then don't," I replied, my voice cold, steady. She wiped her face and looked at me, searching for something, maybe a sign of forgiveness, maybe a way to undo what had been done. "I messed up," she admitted. "I got caught up in I don't know, the excitement, the attention. It was never about love, it was just something different. I let out a bitter laugh. Something different? That's all it takes to throw away years of marriage. She lowered her head. I never wanted to hurt you. But you did. I sat down across from her, studying the woman I once trusted with everything. The woman I thought I knew. I can't change what happened, she continued. But I want to fix this. I want to make it right. How do you make this right? I asked. How do you erase the image of you with him? How do you rebuild trust that's been shattered? She had no answer. Because there wasn't one, for the first time in my life, I realized that love isn't always enough. That some betrayals cut too deep to heal. I need time, I finally said. I don't know if I can ever forgive you, but I need space to figure out what comes next. Tears rolled down her cheeks. I understand. I stood up, feeling the weight of everything pressing down on me. I'll be staying somewhere else for a while. She nodded, but she knew, just like I did, things would never be the same again. As I walked out that door, I felt a strange sense of clarity. The pain was still there, but so was something else, freedom.